Hi everyone, I am Arglethump. This is a video review for Blizzard's Wake. It's a book by Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. It's a historical novel set in March 1941. Was it March or April? I forget. It's based on a real-life blizzard. Let me grab it here. Yeah, March 1941. A severe blizzard went right through North Dakota and Minnesota, and this one was particularly deadly because there wasn't any advance notice. It was like 32 degrees that day, so people were out shopping, having fun that morning, and then that night, boom, terrible blizzard, temperature drops suddenly, lots of people getting stranded in their cars, lots of people died too. It was actually pretty interesting to see this blizzard stuff. What I thought was most interesting was the 1941 setting. It's just interesting because that's when it actually happened. So that's before World War II. That's before America entered World War II. The war was already ongoing at that point. And that's one of the big backdrops of the story is people are worried that America is going to enter the war. They just issued a peacetime draft. People are wondering, well, are you going to get drafted or not? And I thought that was really interesting. I mean, this book goes out of its way to be historically accurate, to the point where there's a disclaimer saying, don't take the medical advice from the 1940s. Don't do that. Don't do that. So that was funny. But yeah, you know, it goes into detail about the fireside chats. Now I'm forgetting all the cool historical stuff. Basically how houses worked back then, because our heroes, their house isn't exactly wired for electricity. And then cars too, because this is like the second car that the families had. I forget, Model T, Model A. I think it's a Model A is the car that they get trapped in here. It is nice that they have the car here on the cover. The rest of the cover is kind of a mess though. Like, they're in a snow globe. They're in a snow globe, actually. Clearly, they had the picture of the woman's face, and then they put a snow globe in front of it. And I think that's just because the word blizzard is in the title of the book, and whoever came up with the cover. You know, I'll take a second look, see if somebody is credited for the cover art. Nope, just a book design. Okay, so clearly, the person who was doing the book design was looking for stuff involving blizzards and snow. They got a free snow globe image and said, sure, I'll go with that. Which is fine. If you've been watching my channel, you know a lot of my book reviews just have a bunch of free public domain stock images, and they don't always fit very well with the videos. But so clearly the same thing happened here when somebody was designing a cover for the book. This creepy guy, I actually kind of like the effect of him standing there too. So let me talk about the actual story. You know, like I said, my favorite part of the story is the historical background, and also, you know, I don't live in a place where there are blizzards, so I have no idea how blizzards and these sorts of things work. I actually had to look up what a snowdrift was, because that's just totally foreign to me, as is living in the year 1941. So I thought that was very interesting. I just like the historical element to this book. The story, the other rest of the story could have happened like any other time. Well, I mean, part of the thing is because it's 1941, they're a little more isolated from everybody else, and so it takes like a couple of weeks for the snowplows to come to clear up the pathway to their house. And I feel like if the story took place today, that like the snow plows would have come faster, and there would have been a lot more notice. Like, people would have gotten an emergency alert on their phones rather than kind of getting a message on the radio slightly before. Kind of not, though, because that's part of the reason why the blizzard's so deadly. It just caught everybody by surprise. And yes, it was a real life blizzard. Okay. So let me get to more of the book story elements. So there are like four main characters. One of them, Zeke, and he just got out of jail for, I'm forgetting the term. It was murder, but it was negligent murder. So basically he got drunk, and he doesn't remember anything else that happened that night. He remembers sitting at the bar and drinking, And then the next thing he remembers, he was in a car crash, someone's dead. And so this family, the Sterling family, is kind of dealing with that. The daughter, Kate, she's sort of the main character here. There's like four characters. There's the Zeke guy who's just gotten out of prison, and I thought that was interesting because he basically has no connection to everyone, and he's trying to adjust to the real life, to the real world. He figured he'll go see his brother, who's like the only person who might be able to help. Unfortunately, his brother, his house was burned down in an accident like 3 days ago, but Zeke had no idea. So Zeke kind of going to meet somebody who's not there. So that's sad. He gets caught in the blizzard, wanders around for like an hour or so, and really part of the reason why he is because he's sort of ashamed of his past. He doesn't want the person who's giving him a ride to connect the dots and realize, wait, you're that murderer guy, aren't you? Because there are some people who recognize him and are not willing to give him a chance at all. And it's so harsh that it makes you wonder why this guy is going back to this town in the first place instead of just going to another state and starting over. That'd probably be the smart move. But I can understand if that would be his plan after meeting with his brother. So, and it's okay with the employment situation there, with the people being drafted, more jobs are opening up for people like him. So, that was Zeke's story. Getting back to the family, they are having a hard time. The son, Jesse, he's now 11 years old, and he seems to have gotten over it. I'm not so sure about Doc Sterling. He was sort of like the most distant character. He's very like clinical because he's like a doctor and he gives like measured responses to things. And I mean, he's a very smart man because he's a doctor, but he doesn't seem to be very good when it comes to emotions. I wouldn't say he's like hardened, but just as part of his job, he's used to seeing people in deadly situations with deathly injuries, and you know, he's able to handle it and process it better than his family can. But Kate, the daughter, is just not over it. She's very still upset, and you know, it's the sort of thing. It's like every single day she looks at the place where the car crash happened, and every single day she tells herself she's not going to look at it. I'm not going to look at it, but she looks at it anyway. And she keeps telling herself, okay, I'm over it, I'm fine. And then every day she ends up like cursing Zeke. And yeah. So blizzard hits, I think about a third or halfway through, and then it's like another third before our characters interact. So Jesse and Doc are trapped in the car, and they're like on the road from their house. So they're like 100 feet or so away from the house, which is relatively close. But this blizzard's so deadly, like people died going 5 yards from their house. I think the example is somebody tried to go to a barn or you know, like a cow shed, and they were just found dead the next morning, frozen to death. The way they have it is they do have like this rope line from the house to the barn, so you could get to the barn in term if there's a bad blizzard, snowstorm. So Kate ends up gathering as much rope as she possibly can. She sort of ties it around herself and makes the treacherous journey to the barn and tries to follow from the barn to the fence. And then from the fence, you've got this big empty gap, and then the other part of the fence, which should lead to the driveway area where the car is. So, I mean, she makes that very treacherous journey, and that takes a while. Meanwhile, in the car, the doctor he knows they can't fall asleep, and he does a bunch of stuff to try to warm it up and prevent them from falling asleep. And then Zeke shows up partway through the storm, like an hour or two into the storm. Zeke shows up and knocks on the car, and they basically take him. He's basically dying. He's like completely out of it, and the doc helps wake him up. But the doc doesn't, I mean, the doc's not okay with Zeke being there, but he knows I'm not going to let this guy die just because he happened to stumble around this area. And so Kate is much more forceful. She's actually does entertain thoughts of just let Zeke die. but they bring him back to the house and they try to get better. A lot of awkward conversations where Zeke is trying to deal with the family, but he's not used to dealing with anyone. That's how he got through prison, is being silent and not talking to people. And yeah, it's like the final, it's like, I think somebody said it was like the final third of the book is when the characters, that's not quite accurate, but final 70 pages is basically Kate meeting Zeke, because that's the big one. Zeke's already been in the car for a while there. But yeah, that's like the final 70 pages, basically them in the house, dealing with each other, Kate trying to come to grips with her feelings, Zeke trying to escape, and it's extended because Zeke gets into a terrible accident like a week later, where he's cutting firewood, and then he hurts himself with the axe. So he's very badly hurt, and it's going to take like 6 to 8 weeks. Very graphic description, too. Oh, that wasn't very pleasant to read. So he's trapped in the house for 6 or 8 weeks, and Jesse seems to handle it best with getting over Zeke, but Zeke and Kate are just kind of confrontational at the end, really all the way towards the end. And what seems to be like the nail in the coffin is that Zeke helps rebuild this bridge that her mother made, and Kate learns she has to forgive herself before she can forgive Zeke, because apparently, I mean, this isn't revealed until the very end, but she had a big fight with her mom the night that mom was killed, and so that's really been hanging heavy on her conscience. And you know, she's not the best, but she's doing a lot better, to the point where she's able to write a letter to Zeke at the very end. And it's kind of a hopeful thing, and that really goes back into the title of the book, Blizzard's Wake, because wake has two different meanings. Wake meaning something you do in front of a funeral, and then wake also meaning aftermath. And it's like, it feels like her life has been a blizzard for the past 3 years, ever since her mother died, and now we're dealing with the aftermath of that, where she very much has to directly confront that, because she's with the man who killed her mother due to extenuating circumstances. Zeke. Okay, so that's enough of a summary, okay? I'm sorry, I've been talking for a while. So, Blizzard's Wake, as I said, interesting story, mostly about Kate, though. I really like the Zeke parts, too, because I thought that was interesting, the way he was trying to adjust to life as well. Maybe there could have been a bit more, like, literary stuff, comparing and contrasting. Zeke has to adjust to a new life out of prison, whereas she has to adjust to a new life without a mom. And there could have been a bit more literary comparisons between those, but I think it's good enough. Really, it's just a straightforward historical novel at its heart. That's what I thought was the best part of the book, was the straightforward historical stuff about this really terrible blizzard. But we also have this story about this, she's 16, right? Yeah, now she's 16, and she's finally learning to let go and move on with her life after the tragic death of her mother. So that's what this book is about. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I think I would I'd probably give this book an 8 out of 10. That seems to be like the standard score that people are giving the book, and that sounds about right to me. So, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.